Hey guys, it's Thorn. Happy Saturday, happy weekend. Days are kind of running together anyway, but I sort of reserve weekends for writing and interneting and kind of like my witch social media-ing. So I look forward to Saturday mornings because it's usually when I have the energy to do things like vlog and write blogs and whatever. So I spent yesterday evening cleaning out it's kind of a temple space. Like I have, on the Zillow page, it was billed as a bonus room. What it actually is, I'm pretty sure, is kind of an illegal attic that clearly isn't up to code, and like, maybe it was intended for other things, I don't know, but I turned it into a magical space. Whoever lived here before me had abandoned a bunch of fitness equipment. So that stuff all got dragged out, and I brought up the library and, you know, kind of like my tools, and this is where I have Circle. It's really nice having kind of a private space, especially because since it's basically an illegal attic, the entranceway looks like a closet in a downstairs room, so it's not an obvious room. So it's sort of like having a little secret. My husband actually thinks it's really funny to come upstairs and, you know, like we've got a code, like if I leave the door cracked, it's fine, like he's welcome. But he likes to come upstairs and say, "Witchcraft under my own roof?" And, you know, we pretend to be scandalized, and it's kind of the stupid thing that makes us both laugh. My secret witch room. Anyway, all that to say, last night I was dusting, cleaning, vacuuming. I just kind of got it into my head to do some of those more mundane tasks that we sometimes neglect, you know, changing out ash in incense burners and that sort of thing. And anyway, I got to going through my pile of old journals and old like magical books of shadows, records. I've said in a lot of other videos I've always been a really avid journaler, and the result is like a butt ton of books, starting from when I first began practicing. And I usually have to kind of mentally prepare for this and make space in my head to do this, but I just sort of haphazardly started flipping through them and rereading them. Normally that takes a little bit of mental bracing, just because, you know, it's the reason why people don't journal, or why when they finish they get rid of their journals, is because sometimes reading over old stuff is really painful. Sometimes you get insight into yourself that you didn't necessarily want, or you find yourself revisiting things that maybe you forgot about, or maybe you just sort of consciously put away. So I was flipping through old journals, and I was just really struck by some things that I wanted to share. So Corvus and I joke that you know you've made it as any kind of witch or pagan when you can say something to the effect of practicing for 20 years, or a witch of more than 20 years, or active in pagan communities for 20 years. Like 20 years is this benchmark that somehow we've sort of all collectively agreed is meaningful. Like I challenge you, go to your witchy bookcase right now and flip through bios, and like 20 years is this magical number that we've decided indicates maturity in our communities. It's really fascinating, and I did it too, right? If you look at, you know, Thorn Mooney's bio, like 20 years, and here we are, it is in fact over 20 years. And flipping through those journals, I just can't help thinking about how much I don't know, and how much I still fuck up, and like how just kind of, it's humbling, but it's also like It's also really inspiring to think that there's still so much to learn and so much to do, just because I think a lot of folks, they get to a certain point and witchcraft and paganism can start to feel boring. Like, people get into ruts. It's actually what my next book is about, is ruts and kind of what to do when you're feeling stuck, whether, you know, you're overwhelmed as a beginner or you're just dealing with burnout. And it's just really gratifying to see how much there is. Because eventually, and those of you who've been around for, 20 years or whatever, like, every book really starts to feel like the same book. You can go to an open ritual or a festival and you know how the ritual is going to go because you've seen 700 of them and they're all the same. Like, you get into ruts. And anyway, so I'm flipping through my journals, and some of the things that really hit me that I thought I'd share, like, I did a video a little while ago that was like lessons learned, at 30. Lessons learned at 20 years of being a witch. I go through my journals and I am obsessed with whether or not I'm doing things right. Like, from the beginning, I worry about if I'm fucking something up, if I don't know something that I should, if other people will think that I'm not really a witch. Like, I just, in different forms, I'm kind of obsessed with this idea of, am I really a witch and am I really doing it right? Because from year to year and decade to decade and trend to trend, the thing that makes you a real witch shifts. So in the 90s, the big concern was initiation. We were all reading Silver Ravenwolf and Scott Cunningham, and The Craft had come out, and everybody was really concerned about whether or not you could go to Barnes & Noble. Except, did we even have Barnes & Noble at that point? I don't think we did. You could go to Walden Books and buy a book about Wicca and then declare yourself a Wiccan, and then, like, did that make it really true? And then you'd get on an AOL chat room in the evening, and you'd be subjected to people claiming to be initiates in various lineages telling you that you were shit because you were trying to teach yourself. Like, that's what the 90s was like. And then when I turned 18 and I went to college and I became an adult, or like I sort of eased gradually into adulthood, because realistically that didn't happen in college, the big concern again was, okay, am I in the right kind of group? Like, now that I had the kind of the mobility, there was a pagan student union on college, like the campus where I was at had a pagan group, and then there was a local community that did drum circles and shit, and so I was suddenly with people. Like, I wasn't a solitary, I was part of reading groups, and I eventually joined a coven. But then, like, the big hang up was, yes, but is it a lineaged coven? Is it the right kind of coven? And how discouraging that was. And then even later, like, once I was in the right kind of tradition, well, was it the right line within that tradition? Like, it just never stopped. So I've got like 7 big-ass books over there that are full, and I do an interesting thing as a young person writing. I simultaneously am really anxious about whether or not people think I'm legit, but I also swear up and down that it doesn't matter and I don't really care. Like, clearly it does, because I keep writing about it. It's really fascinating. So I bring that up to say that I don't know that that's an anxiety that's not something that other people can fix for you. I was going to say, I don't know if it's an anxiety that ever really goes away. It does go away. I don't have the same worries that I did when I was, certainly not when I was 13 or 14, but not when I was 25 or 26 either. Like, at some point, I think I settled into my practice and I kind of just let it be what it was and started being more concerned about myself. But that took a long time. For me, it took a lot of, like, external help too, through therapists or through journaling or just a lot of introspection. Like, the anxiety went away, but the criticism never did. Like, that's kind of the point I want to make. Like, there's still folks who swear up and down that, what I'm doing isn't real, or like I'm not really a witch, or what. Like, I don't know. And sometimes the sources of those accusations are really hurtful, but at some point in my practice, I'm glad to say that I matured into somebody who was able to kind of set those things down. So I don't know, like I wanted to kind of reflect on that at you, just because I know that's something that people comment on my videos a whole lot about, whether or not they're doing something right, or can I show them or point them into the, you know, to the right direction, like how do they know? Like, I think the successful practice of witchcraft is so much about getting to know yourself and building relationships with, whether you're working with gods or spirits, or you're just concerned about, you know, your personal growth. Like, I think all of those things have a way of forcing honesty in yourself. Like that's how they become effective. Like you build honest relationships with spirits or gods, you build an honest relationship with yourself, and that's what you see growing over the decades. So like when somebody says they've been at this for 20 years, like that doesn't necessarily mean anything definitive, except for that like maybe they've hung on to these labels or this community for a prolonged period of time. I think it also matters when those years were. Like for me, yeah, okay, I've been around for 20 plus years, but I was also a child for a big chunk of that. Like in some ways I think that I grew up in paganism in a particular way, and having that kind of experience is necessarily not going to be the same as somebody who comes in when they're 30 and then hits their 20-year mark at 50. Like that's a very different set of experiences. So yeah, like I've been at this 20 plus years, but I'm definitely still learning like all the time. I don't think that I ever got out of student mode. There were times when I thought I was done being a student. Like I can read through those journals and I'm kind of a dick sometimes. like all that stuff is in there. But it's cool being an adult and getting to consciously like put myself into student mode and consciously like accept being okay with still learning, and not having a handle on things, and at times being insecure about certain things, and having that be kind of fun and exploratory instead of like this soul-shaking space where I feel like I'm not allowed or something. Anyway, it's cool. Like, if you don't keep a journal, you should keep a journal. You should keep some kind of record. It doesn't have to be like a diary where you slave with a fountain pen, but some kind of record, even if it's just like jottings on a computer or a photo album, or like even writing notes in your books as you read. Like this is a kind of journaling too. They're all really useful records for reflecting on who you were and what you were thinking as you were processing some of these lessons. It's been really valuable, and that's not something that is instantaneous. Like you really need kind of years to look at before you, I think, realize the heaviness of what that kind of record keeping can do. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to cleaning, but I don't know, like I'm really grateful for younger Thorn, who took the journaling aspect of craft work seriously. And I'm just struck by how much our communities change, but how much of our kind of concerns stay the same. Like they take different shapes, but it's kind of the same stuff over and over again with different players and different language. So anyway, I hope you all are well and surviving and healthy and safe and well caffeinated. I'm about to be, and have a good weekend.